What's happening, legends? Welcome back to the Becoming Reborn podcast. Now, I've got a very special guest with me today. He's played about 1 million NRL games. He played for Roosters, Newcastle, and then recently over at Catalans. And it's going to be a very fun story because we've actually met at in another situation, but we'll get to that soon. Mitchell Pearce. How are you, bro?
Good, Trav. Good to be on here.
Mate, I've been that excited for this podcast for a long time. And I'm going to keep you guys in suspense of how me and Piercy actually met, because it's actually, now it's a funny story compared to, how I've met most of the other boys. But before we get there, let's start with your upbringing, bro. What was your upbringing like? Obviously, your dad was very famous, great footballer. He accomplished a lot of things in the game himself. Wayne, tell us about your upbringing.
Yeah, mate. Obviously, it's always well publicised that my dad played footy, and that's all the story sort of bees, I suppose. But yeah, I had a good upbringing. My parents were together through my whole childhood. Obviously, Dad provided us with a good upbringing off the back of his footy career. So yeah, I can't complain with the way I grew up. Obviously, all of us go through different traumas and setbacks, but all in all, my family was really stable, and I had a good upbringing, and I'm very thankful for that. And I had good guidance. I think having strong parents, loving mum and a dad that's a bit of a leader is a perfect upbringing for anyone.
Because your dad doesn't drink, hey?
No.
Did you ever see your dad drink?
No, there's rumours that Dad had a beer after, like half a beer or one sip or something after an Origin game. I think the boys must have pinned him down and thrown it down his throat. But that's his little story around alcohol. Dad grew up in Balmain, so all my family are from around Glebe, Balmain originally, and Dad grew up in a single mum household. He was the older brother, and big alcohol issues in through the family. So that was kind of his breakthrough to not drink, and create his kind of story through his whole life. So he kind of broke the mold from the Pearce side of the family and chose the sober train, and it's pretty cool when you think about it.
That's really cool. There's actually I don't know if you call it a meme, but I've seen this picture on like Facebook or Instagram, right? So it's got two different pictures, like they're both just cartoon pictures, right? One's of like a successful man who's carrying a briefcase, he's in a suit, and then there's a bum, there's a guy that's homeless sitting on the side of the street, right? And the question is at the top, why are you successful? And then underneath it, why are you the way you are? And the successful guy goes, I'm like this because my dad drank all the time. Mm. And then underneath, the homeless man said, same question. Why are you the way you are? It's because my dad drank all the time. So there's two different ways your dad could have gone, and he chose the sober life, which is incredible. And then that being, growing up in that, was it hard was he strict on you with, drinking and not drinking or anything like that when you were younger?
No, I love the analogy that you just used. I think, there's a choice in everything we can do. You can go down and be the victim, or you can make your own choices and create your own sort of journey. And obviously Dad was probably a born leader. It would have been difficult in that sort of era to...
Heaps hard in that
coming
era.
through as a footy player, you probably get some weird comments from senior players. Or Balmain back in those days, it's changed a lot, but Glebe Balmain in the 80s was a rough area, and it was a rural working class area, a lot of wharfies, and it was a lot of housing commission, that type of stuff around the area. So it would have been a difficult decision as a young kid, especially growing up in a tough sort of family, not to drink and make that choice. The respect I have for my father. Now I've made changes, and what a impressive sort of action that was from a young age is I'm all respect. But I think for me, maybe I put down a lot of my looseness. I think it's a personality type as well, and the way you are. Me and Dad are similar in some ways, a lot different in others, and he's definitely more of a straighter type of personality than me. But I think so personality, I always loved a good time from a young age. I was 100 miles an hour, ADHD in everything I did, football and off the field. And that's sort of just the way I was, or the way I developed and perceived the world, I suppose, however it works. But I think maybe there was a bit of me rebelling in those early days. I had a bit of a strong father figure without even knowing it, when you got that sort of strong presence there all the time. maybe it was a bit of, I want to kind of go my own way. And, I loved footy, fell in love with the game. So I was definitely following Dad's path that way. But maybe there was a part of me that was rebelling. Dad never put pressure on me with anything like that. If anything, I sort of had a free rein. Like, he never said to me, mate, don't do this, don't do that. He was always present and supportive. But, you look back in hindsight as you get older, and you can see sometimes some decisions made from our parents, which is usually where it comes from.
I ask, in full transparency, because my kids have never seen me drink. And they'll never see me drink.
Yeah.
So I'm asking more so for myself, right? I'm like, well, how do I? Because I've tossed and turned with this a lot, PC, of like what my kids are going to. Because my eldest, he's very calm and soft-natured, but my middle, he's identical to me.
Yeah, right.
How I talk, how I walk. But in saying that, he copies everything I do now. But I can see that he's got like...
He's got a bit of rat in him.
He's got that rebellious side in him as well. I was more asking, and like I said, like, to be honest, like, what do I do so that like steer my kids in the right direction? Because my thing is always has been and always will be, like, they're going to have to make their own mistakes. And you and I both have had to make our own mistakes along the way to learn that way. And that's our style, right? Mm-hmm. That we can't really learn until we do it ourselves, good, bad, or the otherwise. And then we go, okay, we've done that now. That didn't work, or that did work, and we roll on from there. Yeah. So upbringing, really good. Sounds like you had really beautiful parents. What was school like for you in terms of like your sport and things like that? Were you always naturally gifted at all sport you did, in particular rugby league?
Yeah, I think I was always pretty good at sport. I did a lot of athletics when I was a kid. I was a good runner. I was always a long distance runner.
Really?
Yeah. I went to nationals sort of from probably 11 or 12. Don't check up on this. I'm not trying to make it sound better than it is, but I went to nationals. I can't remember the exact date or the age, but I'm not claiming to be anything I wasn't, but I was a decent runner. It wasn't something that I loved. I love running and fitness, but I did little athletics, and I sort of was always fit for my age. So I went through the grades, and I would always be up the top two in sort of state. I got flogged at nationals, but I was thereabouts. Yeah, I was thereabouts, and I was 400s, 800s, 1500s. So I think that sort of keeps you in good stead through my football career as well. I was always prided myself on being one of the fitter players and that type of stuff. So I think I was, Dad was, keep going back to Dad, but Dad was super fit in his DNA. So maybe I picked it up naturally. It was always something that sort of came easier to me. Running and athletics. I smashed myself into that a lot as a kid. Football, soccer. I played soccer till I was 10.
So you did both? League and soccer, or just soccer?
I just played soccer, so...
Shut up. You didn't start playing league till you were 11?
11, yeah. So my parents wouldn't let me.
What?
Yeah, it was a bit weird. I think mainly just because of, obviously, Dad playing himself, and they sort of maybe wanted me to work my own kind of path out. So I was playing soccer till I was 10.
That's outrageous.
Yeah, I think in hindsight, you talk about your children and different sports and letting them sort of grow in their own way. I think soccer's a great sport for all sports. It's hand-eye with the vision, the fitness. I think for me, being a halfback, playing soccer at a young age might have been a good thing for my skill set and all that in hindsight as well. So, but yeah, rugby league was in my blood. I was around it ever since I was a kid. Even though I was playing soccer, I was always out the back playing footy and watching every game of footy and watching Andrew Johns and all these guys since I can remember watching footy. So, I just kept knocking the door in, finally started playing, and then that's it.
So once you started playing from when you were 11, did it just come naturally to you, or did it take you a few years for you to kind of grow into it? Then you start making you don't start playing reps until you're like 15, 16 and stuff like that. But those first few years, did it come naturally to you anyway? Yeah,
I suppose, it sort of did. You obviously want to keep getting better and have to keep working hard. But yeah, footy was always, sport in general for me was always something that came more natural. I just had this love for the game and just curiosity, always want to be better. And ever since I was a kid, I was a very OCD kid in everything, even off the field. Like I was doing some weird sort of stuff around 13, 14, like a real perfectionist with things.
Give me an example.
I was super unorganised with like really scattered, and I've always been a bit like that. Scattered with remembering things or cleaning the house, this type of stuff. But just, around footy stuff and my training, I was just super OCD. Like the amount of kicks I was doing, the amount of passes I'd do. I had to tick off my weight sessions. Like I was really meticulous with my training and that type of stuff, even from an early age. I'd go out the back as a kid and, throwing balls. I had to hit the same spot, 50 times. And if I didn't, I'd come in, have dinner, and then I'd go back out. Like just doing that type of stuff. For whatever reason, that was how I was. And that sort of transferred to some weird habits. Even when I was around 14, 15, that OCD stuff, in my room, I used to have all my clothes on the ground, so it was messy, but I couldn't have anything touching. And then every time I'd go to bed, before I go to bed, I'd slam the cupboard like 30 times. And so I was doing some weird traits around there, but I feel like it benefited me in some way with my footy. Yeah. I was really, that obsessiveness and OCD.
It's almost like hyper focus, right? And it's really common in people with ADHD is when like they can't concentrate on like just general things that are going on around them, but when they're passionate and then it drives purpose, they can really focus. So it sounds like something like that, what you had there. Yeah. Wow, that's insane.
Maybe you just diagnosed me.
Yeah, maybe. Pat diagnosed me a long time ago because of like the thing. I'm similar, right? There's certain things that like I just can't really focus. If we have a meeting, right? We had a budgeting meeting 2 weeks ago. It's me. Pat's the numbers guy. Yep. I'm horrible. Like about half an hour in, I'm sitting there drawing, doing doodles and stuff like that. And Pat's loving it. But then you get me in front of something that I'm like where I can be creative and I can concentrate. I can sit there for hours. But it's just people's different passions as well. So do you make from then at a young age? Do you just make the rep team straight away?
I reckon sort of probably from 16, I had a bit of a breakthrough. I was sort of a skinnier kid, being a little white kid. I was sort of skinnier, probably 13, 14. I always played upper grade. So at school, I finished school at 17. So I was that young. Yeah. I started school earlier and then finished younger. So I was 17 in year 12. So I was always, from pretty much 15, 14, I always found myself playing in older age groups. So I reckon around 14, 15, playing against older boys, I was going okay, but you're still that younger kid a little bit. But I always relished that. I always enjoyed being around older boys and playing with the older boys. And then I had a bit of a breakthrough when I played the New South Wales CCC. Yeah. Went away on the Australian schoolboys that year. I was only 16 playing in the Opens. And
huge.
That was a real confidence boost for me. I signed with the Roosters after that. Had a fair few clubs sort of coming at me after that tournament. You look back at sort of chapters in your life and sliding doors, and I feel like I remember that tour specifically, or that CCC competition. It was a real confidence boost for me. There was a lot of the kids from out west, Patrician Brothers and your Michael Jennings and then all these type of guys that.
Yeah, that team was stacked. The Australian schoolboys that you played in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like there's some really big. Now I was talking to Benny Roberts about his team that he played in the Australian schoolboys. That was absolutely stacked too. Yeah. But you had heaps of big names in yours as well. Was Darius Boyd in yours?
Yeah, we had Darius, Michael Jennings, Jared Mullen was there. The year after I captained the Australian schoolboys. The year after we had Izzy Folau and Dave Taylor. We had some really good players in those teams. That sort of, you look back, I think those, you have those sliding doors, and around 16, 17, sort of where you start to find yourself, especially in footy, and that was a time when I started to gain a bit of confidence and signed with the Roosters. Ricky Stewart was the head coach at the Roosters, and he was massive for me. I've always held a lot of respect for Sticky because of the belief he invested in me at that age, and he threw me I came to the Roosters as a 16-year-old, started training with the Jersey Flegg, ended up playing the whole season there. Yeah. Flegg at that age was 21s. Yeah. So I was a young kid even playing with all those boys, and Sticky even got me up in the full-time squad a couple of times, just around the group. So he gave me a lot of confidence and belief, and that sort of stuff, you're forever in debt to them.
Well, you and Sticky, you had more finesse, but you're a tough halfback. Like, I remember when you first came through, and I wish that there was more halfbacks like you now. You played very direct. You and Kieran Foran both have that. Like, did you learn that from Joey, actually? Because I remember you saying you did some stuff with Joey where it's like those first 3 steps when you catch a ball, it is just straight and it's hard, and then you'll choose whether you're going inside, outside, right? But I love that because and I'm assuming your forwards loved it even more because you would get the defense on the back foot, but you played so direct and so fast paced as well. That's something you developed in those early years? Is something you learned from Joey, or is it just something that kind of came over a period of time?
Probably a bit of everything. It's funny you mentioned Kieran Foran. So me and Foz were mates since we were sort of 10, 11.
Really?
They moved over from you didn't know that?
Nope, didn't know that. Didn't know that you were close. I know you're mates, but I didn't know you were close.
So I grew up with Kieran. So him and his brother and the three of us were best mates all through our childhood, pretty much from.
No way.
Yeah, 10,
so when
11.
you play like that.
Yeah, so it's funny. Like we were so competitive though. Like growing up, was literally nearly every day. We went to school together. Nearly every day we were out the back practicing, and I put a lot of my skills and success and competitive nature down to the boys because. We were in each other's pocket on and off the field pretty much through our whole childhood, and it was pretty, competitive times there, from backyard footy to pool footy to
everything
was an argument and a fight, and
yep.
That's what you're doing with your best mates at that age, and we challenged each other in every way, and that was sort of the way we both, I think, ended up playing. So I put a lot of it down to the boys and that competitive edge.
That's sick. And what I liked about you, Pearce, as well, from a young age, and we'll get to your debut in a second, but you always backed yourself. So if you saw something, you went for it. And that was from like when you debuted all the way through your career. Whereas I feel now you're a better judge than I am, but I feel now a lot of the halves are just overcoached. And they're being taught structure and they just play that, which is like great 90% of the time. But when you needed to, you played eyes up footy, and if you saw something, you went for it, regardless of we had this set play on or we had this structure that we're setting up for. If you saw it, you would go. Like we'll get to your debut now, right? You debuted in a stacked Roosters team, bro. Yeah. Run us through some of the names that were in your team.
Yeah, it was. I was lucky because obviously I played at the back end of the career as the transition sort of players, but the early days I had Braithen Astor, Craig Wing, Anthony Minicello, Craig Fitzgibbon, Mark O'Mealy, Willie Mason. So I played with all the OGs, so it was pretty cool. Transition. Brad Fittler, I just missed, but he was my coach.
But what I'm getting at is like you're a young bloke, and Benny Roberts talks about this. You still had the balls as a young bloke to tell those guys what to do and then still chance your arm. And that's where you would have got a lot of respect from as well. How hard was that, like coming in as a young bloke? Yeah,
there's plenty of fear when you're coming in. But mate, when you're young, you're coming in bulletproof. I was an insecure kid, I'll be honest. I look back and any confidence I might have showed on the field, I feel off the field. I was always a confident person, but there was some insecurity there too. So it's good to speak about that because it's not all easy and just coming in and barking the lads around. I was shitting myself in those first few pre-seasons. I remember captaining the Australian schoolboys, and then I got the opportunity to come back with Chris Anderson and train with the full-time boys after Christmas. I was getting a fair few raps at the time. I had a really good tour for the Australian schoolboys. I captained. I think I got player of the tour over there in a really good side. We were unbeaten, and then, but it's schoolboy footy, right? So there was a lot of these stories coming up, and then I was coming to full-time training. Obviously, maybe with the last name as well. It was all this hype that for me I didn't really feel comfortable in it. It made me feel insecure. Yeah. So I was going into my pre-seasons with all these big stars, anxious and nervous, but just wanted to earn my respect type of thing. And I feel like I did. I went into pre-season, ended up debuting in round 2 that year. And the senior players at that time were a big push to get me in there.
You were 17, weren't you?
I was only 17 when I debuted.
That's insane, brother.
Yeah, it was mad.
17, bro.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get to the debut. Who'd you play?
We played the Cowboys up there, so
not too bad.
I got flogged.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, but I was spinning out. Like I said, Craig Fitzgibbon was the captain at the time. Braithen Astor was my 5'8". Like I said, Wingy was there, Mini. All these guys I just idolised, and that were really good to me. So from the day one I walked in, like you said, being a halfback, they got around me, they supported me. I felt like I earned their respect, and they really supported me coming into first grade at a young age as well. And as a young kid, to have that sort of muscle around you and that support is a pretty powerful feeling. And I couldn't call some of those boys great mates still now 20 years later, and played some huge games with them, and I actually ended up playing, rep footy with Fitzy and Braith and Mini and stuff over the next couple of years. So yeah, it was a special time to come through, and wind the clock 20 years down the track now, and the way the game's gone and the culture shifts. I'm so grateful I came in with those strong figures and that old school mentality a little bit. It's a good upbringing.
Changed a lot, the culture now. But I'm not sure of the year, but Boydie was there, right?
Boydie came through a couple of years after.
Yeah, he comes through and then he goes on to be a monster. Because going back to your fitness that you were talking about before, he used to always tell me, I used to always like, who's the fittest at the club? And be like, geez, like Pearcey's always up there. Yeah. And he's like, you said you just had an engine on you, like just kept going. Just and kept pushing, and that's where that respect comes from off the field. It's on the training paddock, and then it bleeds into the game as well. So you go through from that second round on. You're pretty much starting all the way through from there, aren't you? You don't kind of bob in and out.
The first year, I had stress fractures in my back. The back end of the season, 2007. But pretty much from there, I was pretty blessed with injury. I didn't miss a game till 2015. And I was playing rep footy most seasons then. Yeah. Missed a couple of years in Origin, but I was playing Origin most of those years. So, I was stacking a lot of footy in, and I'm pretty proud of myself when I look back on that resilience, I suppose, because there was a lot of obstacles there, a lot of big games that the Roosters we played in 2 grand finals in that period as well. So there's a lot of finals, a lot of big games, a lot of Origins. So I stacked a lot of footy for a young kid to my 200th game, and it all just went so fast. But in reflection again, and you look back, I am proud of myself for that, because there was a lot of resilience showed, I suppose. There was a lot of ups and downs and dealing with a lot of pressure and repeat performances and losses, and which can be hard for a young kid. But something I always relished. I enjoyed that part of footy. I never had any other option but to look in and just keep fighting. That was the way I was as a person, and that's what your teammates expect from you, and that's how you earn respect, I suppose. So
let's go to some of your highlights through your career, right? So you just touched on that that was like 200 games. You were we spoke about it, and you're not even too sure. That's how humble you are. I'm pretty sure you're the youngest player to reach 200 games or something like that. And it makes sense if you didn't get injured until 2015 as well. But you had some really big highlights, right? So what came first, Origin or a grand final?
Origin.
Okay, let's go to Origin then. Your debut Origin.
2008.
The ultimate. Yeah. 2008. Yeah. Wait, 2008?
Yeah.
Were you that? So what were you, 19?
19 when I first debuted in Origin.
I didn't realise you were that young. Yeah. You were 19 and debuted in Origin. Shit. All right. And this is the start of like the Queensland's greatest team ever. Dogs. Like that team that you played against, like, what do you do? Like you're coming against, there's not one position where it's like, oh, that's mediocre. Like the whole thing is just stacked of like proper immortals all the way through, and you're 19 years old.
Yeah, that first game was a whirlwind. I got picked. I was playing really well. So that year, the Roosters, I think we got knocked out in the major semi, but we signed Willie Mason, Marco Mealy, someone else that year, I can't remember. But we had this stacked as team, and for a young halfback in your second year to have these alpha males in your team and these Australian front rowers and just huge personalities made my job pretty easy. But we had a really good year, and I was playing really, really good footy alongside Braith that season, and there's plenty of talk about getting picked for Origin that year, but there was a couple of older halves. Brett Kamali was there, Craig Gower. They were sort of at the back end of their career. Yeah. Winding the clock back now.
Yeah, I was like, wow, Brett Kamali and that was still there. Yeah. Good on them.
Yeah, but there was, I think one of those senior halves got injured leading into the last round game that I was playing, and I ended up getting man of the match.
I think it was Craig Gower, but I'm just guessing, but I think it was Craig Gower. Did like a calf or a hammy or something like that. Yeah, and you got called in.
So I got called in, and yeah, mate, it was unreal. I think, to be honest, I spoke about it a bit, but those early days going into Origin, there was less pressure and anxiety around it than there was coming off the back of repeated losses because of obviously, you're young, you're clear.
10-foot tall, bulletproof.
Yeah, and there was that year, that game I played, it was a decider. So I was thrown into the Wolves, but Danny Badiris, it was his last game. He was my captain. Just a stacked old school team.
Who's your 6?
Braith.
Yep.
Braith was the 6.
Centers with Gasnier and Cooper?
You want him.
Sorry.
Challenging me now. Would have been. I played with Gaz either that year or one of the years after. I played with Matt Cooper, so I'd say they were the centers. Yeah, it was just a luxury.
would have been your fullback.
Brett Stewart was the fullback.
Was he?
I think Snake was the fullback. Fitzy was definitely in there. So I was lucky I had a few senior boys from the Roosters that I was friends with and had their respect kind of thing. So going in there, I had a bit of support. But yeah, the whole thing was a whirlwind. I look back on the game, we actually played okay. We got beat, as we did a lot of times in the last 6 minutes. Thurston went through on a show and go. Still breaks my heart, all these memories. But it was a crazy experience, and it started the tidal wave of the Origin career.
Yeah, what a roller coaster that was for you as well, because like you got put up against the hardest era of Origin that will ever be. Like it won't get, like there will never be a Queensland team, like I said before, as good as that team. That team was completely stacked. What was that whole Origin period like? And as you mentioned before, what was the pressure like on each? Because how many series did you play? 6?
Yeah, 6. I think 7 with the last one when I just had one game
for
the decider, that one when I came back. But I think so. You're testing me now, brother.
Yeah, I love that you don't even know this stuff about your career. But okay, so you, through that time, bro, what was that like? Because that's so much pressure, and there's no position that gets the same amount of pressure as the halfback, and that rides on you. All of New South Wales. How did that feel going in year after year against arguably the greatest team that will ever be assembled for Queensland?
Yeah, it was a blessing. It was in hindsight, not in hindsight, at the time in my whole career and even now, it was a blessing. I was always grateful to pull on the New South Wales jersey. Always played with so much passion and pride and will to win, as we all did. And those series hurt, like losing time and time again when we were so close in a lot of those series.
So close.
There was some footy there that it all sort of gets glossed over a little bit, but there was some really good footy in some of those series. There was some deciders there. I remember specifically 2 of them, 2015 and 2011. We weren't even in the fight in those deciders up there. They, from start to finish, they just absolutely buried us. But besides that, a lot of the losses that we had were like 1-point losses or a try
in the last 2, 3 minutes, 4 minutes.
Yeah,
it was.
And as I always say, Queensland were too good, and they're key players, they're immortals. In my position on the opposition, your Thurstons, Lockiers, Slaters, Smiths. Well, they were too good. They were too good in big moments. Yeah, Cronk too. They were too good in big moments and handled pressure better than I did, and probably our spine did over the time. And I'm happily admitting that. But it was the whole thing was a crazy experience when I look back. But I loved every minute of pulling on the blue jersey. I enjoyed every time I got to play with the players I got to play with, and it was an emotional roller coaster because you put so much into those series from staff to players. When you win, it's an amazing feeling. When you lose, it's hard to get off the deck. Yeah.
I was speaking to Cookie about that, and Tice Frizzell I said the same thing. Going after an Origin win or loss, coming back to come back to grade, and then like those weeks after, you just feel depleted because you've emptied everything you had in these, across the series, and you come back and it's just like that weird period after. Yeah. How did you find that every year? Yeah,
like you just said, the boys were saying about it, it's hard to get off the ground again. But I think as Origin players, rep players, when you get that privilege of playing it, it's your duty to come back and do well for your teammates at club level, and that was my approach. I think as competitors, it's probably no different to you in business and what you're doing. You pride yourself on being resilient day in, day out, and turning up for what your purpose is and what your job is. And my job was always to be a good halfback, and I was paid to do that and be good for my teammates at club and rep level. And you just had to get on with it. And it was a really good, it's a really good challenge always. Getting off the deck after losses, wins as well. Both have different rebound effects. Sometimes when you win, it's hard to get back on track as well, to bring yourself back level and refocus on your next job and get out of your ego. And then obviously losses, it's getting out of that shame and pain and all that type of stuff. I think that's the thing that footy teaches you more than anything is dealing with all of that roller coaster. And that's something I suppose going into retirement, not that you miss the roller coaster, but it takes a lot out of you that you know, that's your life for 20 years or however long you play, is that constant roller coaster of wins and losses and getting yourself back on track. You take that for granted, or you underappreciate that maybe when you're playing. And then obviously rep footy highlights that even more. It's because you feel like shit after those losses. Like, you don't want to leave the sheds, especially losing up there in Queensland and all that feeling of letting everyone down. It's emotional, but yeah, as I said, it's great lessons for life is dumping something and then getting back on with the next job and trying not to hold on to that baggage.
I love that you touched on that, bro, because one of my biggest, mate, it drives me insane is when I go watch my mates play NRL, right, and you're sitting in the stands and you hear the fans.
Yeah.
It kills me, man. It frustrates me because people don't realize you guys are human beings, right? You make mistakes as well. And, you know, when they're like, oh, why didn't you just pass, or why didn't you just kick it? You do this and that. Like, the decisions you guys make are in like 0.001 of a second. Like, you see something, bang, you make that decision. And there's a saying by Roosevelt Theodore, I think I just butchered that name, and it talks about the man in the arena, and it talks about, I'd rather be, I'm just going to summarize it, I'd rather be the person in the arena giving life a crack opposed to the person in the stands yelling at the person in the arena. And what burns me is that these people think that what you do is easy because you're good at it. But it's so hard, not only to be that athletic, but to deal with all the other external pressures that you're just talking about then. Like, all of New South Wales is on your shoulders. Like, you feel like you're letting other people down when you lose. At the end of the day, it's a game. But what people don't understand is that you're a human being. And these things happen. So I'm glad that you actually like shared that then of like, all right, like there's how hard it actually is to be doing these things. So people don't understand that. And it drives me insane, like listening to people. Like, I've got an opinion on people that have an opinion. I'm like, you guys don't have the right to, you know, say these things about the players, like, because you've never done it yourself. You've never been able to do it. So how can you have an opinion on someone on what they do if you can't do it? It's like you sitting here yelling at the boys about doing a podcast and you got no idea about the podcast.
Yeah.
You know
it's human nature, right?
Yeah.
Like, without we're talking about quotes every 2 minutes, but that I've heard Sam Burgess talk about pressure is a privilege.
Yeah.
It's such a good saying because, you know, I've never been someone, even through my career, and obviously caught plenty of different criticism, rightly so, on and off the field, poor performances and good performance. I've never been bitter towards that. I understand people's opinions as what, you know, you take the good with the bad.
Love that from you, bro.
Yeah, like I've never, maybe that's a reason why I've had a positive attitude and always played with longevity, because I never get bogged down with that sort of stuff.
Water off a duck's back.
Yeah, like, and at the same time, I'm a sensitive person as well. Sometimes I'm not going to act like I'm not like this mad hard dude. Like, I am quite a sensitive person, so I do, and I can be a people pleaser at times through my life. So I do have a sensitive side there. So I do care what people think. But when it came to sport and people's opinion and external criticism, it never entered my mind.
Love that. That's so good, bro.
Yeah, and I know it does for some of the boys, and I think it's a trait that you probably need to learn to let go of as soon as you can, because I think in any walk of life, if you constantly got roadblocks on worrying about what some person outside is saying about you, you're not going to keep moving forward. It's
funny. I'm the same about myself, right? I know that people have their opinion of me, and some of it good, some are bad, and some rightfully so for bad from the person I was. But it doesn't affect me. But watching my mates go through it, that hurts me. I don't know why. It hurts me more. Yeah. But I don't want to just rush over your footy career, but I also kind of do, because I want to get to the good stuff, so to speak. But let's get to the highlights of the grand final 2013. My boy Boydie's there with ya.
Boyd, how good is he?
Love that guy so much.
Yeah.
Bro, how old are you? 2000, you'd be what, 24?
24, yep.
24 years old,
yep.
Going into a grand final. Run us through a couple of the big names that are in there, Boydie. Favourite?
Yep. Yeah, Boydo's my favourite too. He was our captain.
Yeah, it's my captain in life.
He is. He's just
the best.
Out and out leader, isn't he, Boydo? Mitch Orbison was there. Jared Warrior-Hargraves, Jake Friend, all the lads that we came through together. So that's what probably made the grand final so special, that we had that core group that came through from an early age. And then obviously we had a few top-ups, which ended up getting us the result, I think, with Sonny Bill Williams.
Oh, just that old thing.
Jimmy Maloney, who was my halfback and partner in crime. I love Jimmy. And who else did we have there? Luke O'Donnell, who was the old
Crazy.
dog that year. But we just had such a good group. Big personalities, great players all across the park. Michael Jennings as well, who's one of the best players I've played with. But just the whole crew we had there was huge personalities, but just such a close knit team. Fergs was there the year after.
Oh, the year after. So you're
Good old Fergs.
You're right edge, aren't you?
Yeah.
You, Skidzy, and then who was your winger?
Roger. I know. That's the best.
Roger was your
Toopsy
winger.
was on the other wing. So the team was
Toops.
Daniel Tupou, Michael Jennings, Sean Kenny-Dow, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, Anthony Minicello, me and Jimmy, Aiden Guerrero, who had a huge year at that time.
Yeah.
Boydo, Sammy Moa, Jared. Like, mate, it's dream team. No wonder we won.
Yeah. Who'd you play against?
Manly. But to be honest, Manly's pack and their team... sorry, I got a bit of a cough. Manly's pack and their team was pretty much on par with us.
Yeah.
Like they had... It was
Stewart
two
brothers.
just red-hot sides. Yeah, Stewart boys, Jason King, Foz and Cherry Evans, Jamie Lyon, Stevie Maddie. So they had...
Yeah, their team was stacked too.
Yeah, they had a proper good side. And, mate, the feeling that you get out of those grand finals, but it's unreplaceable.
What were some of the highlights in the game? What did the score end up?
We were behind, so that was sort of made the storyline even better. We were down by 10 with about 20 to go. So, yeah, the backside was going like that a little bit with about 20 to go. But, yeah, we got back, got a couple of lucky calls, got a few big moments. I remember Sonny really took control of that last 20 minutes. Jimmy Maloney had a huge game. Michael Jennings got that last try to seal the game off Jimmy's grubber. So, yeah, there was just Skidsy's try when he went through and scored in that right corner.
That was the one I was going to mention. That's
Yeah.
one where he makes a break and he goes all the way across the opposite side of the field.
Yeah, yeah. So I think Jimmy went through and then hit Minnie and then Skidsy and let's talk it through. Let's commentate it.
That's good.
Good memories. It was just, yeah, look, like I said, it was just the best feeling. And that club and that at that time when I was there for my own personal experience, the group we had for years was just the most connected I've ever felt in footy. You know, we had such big egos and personalities. Well, not egos, big personalities and big players, but it was just such a loving environment.
So that's one of your career. Now I'm getting the coughs. That was one of the career highlights, and then you end up going to Newcastle. That would have been a tough time as well. Coming from like Roosters is one of your you've been there since you're literally 16. Then having to go up to Newcastle, was that a tough time through going up there, or did you love it up there?
No, I enjoyed Newcastle the first 2 years. Obviously, when I left Roosters, I had an opportunity to stay. In hindsight, I thought it was just a sort of novelty invite to stay, but I heard after the club did want me to stay. Obviously, Coops, did his job there, won 2 competitions, and obviously it was a huge signing and a better player than me, no doubt. But I had an opportunity to stay. I ended up choosing to leave just in the circumstances and went up to Newcastle.
Would they have played you at 6, or what was the...
I'm not too sure. I think obviously I might have been as a 14, and just the way it unfolded, it was just for me, that was sort of the reason I
Respectfully, you're not a 14, like you're a 7, bro.
Well, that's what I was
You're
a
a
bit
leader.
taken back, but mate, I've spoke about that plenty of times, and look, Cooper Cronk's one of the greatest 7s of all time. And there's no doubt I would have learned a bit off Coops, but where my reaction was at that time, I had a few options from other clubs. There was a fair few clubs coming around, and after a bit of a setback, you feel good about a bit of validation and a few options. And so I made a choice after sort of being there for 11 years to go somewhere else. Went to Newcastle. First 2 years, as I said, I really enjoyed my footy up there.
It's your first game you kicked a field goal to win the game?
Yeah, that was mad. That was the highlight.
I remember that. That was
No, there was some good footy. Obviously, playing with KP that year. The first 2 years was a different scenario playing in Newcastle because obviously the team was in a completely different situation to the roster we had at Roosters. It was more of a rebuilding club. But yeah, I got to line up with KP, and we created a really good combination, especially through the whole time. But those first couple of years, I got myself back into Origin, and Kay nearly won the Dally M that first year, and we played some really good footy together in a different sort of team situation. So, it was a good experience up there.
And then you go over to Catalans. You enjoy your time over there, bro?
Loved it, yeah. Yeah, I loved France. The first year, I was probably still stuck in Australian mode a bit.
Being diligent with everything?
No, I was pretty loose. Always diligent with footy, I suppose. I was diligent with footy. But yeah, I enjoyed myself the first year, and I had a great crew there. But when I'm in Australia mode, you sort of go over there as just a tourist. You know, you sort of go in there, but you're still stuck in Australia, missing home a bit.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean? And,
yeah.
But I met my partner at the back end of that year, and went back the second year. That was sort of when I had my epiphany, my light bulb moment, getting off the drink just before I went back for my second year. I was at a bit of a crossroads, to be honest, at that point. I laugh about and had a joke about being loose over there, but the back end of that season was a pretty crazy time. I tried to enjoy Europe a little bit. I was single at the time. I'd had a fallout with my previous relationship, which was pretty well publicised, and that was a tough time. So I went over there single. As I said, I loved the lifestyle change. Really enjoyed my footy and playing over there with all of the boys, different cultures, English, French and Australian boys. But yeah, I went pretty hard at the back end of that year, came back to Australia and we kept doing the same thing. A little bit lost. I didn't have a partner, as I said. I was 34, 33 at the time. A little bit lost, really, to be honest.
So now we're going to pivot, boys and girls, and here we go. All right, so we're gonna rewind this back now. I'm going to tell you how me and Pearcey met, and then we're going to take you off field, and we're going to take you through what the journey's been on the outside of football. So I met Pearcey in 2016 after I got back from rehab. Now, I haven't told you this story yet, Pearcey.
Yeah.
The reason why I went to Chiang Mai, Thailand is because you went to Chiang Mai, Thailand.
Yeah, right.
So we're not going to go into what Pearcey did. Like it's to me, it's ridiculous that it got the amount of coverage that it did. But you got yourself in a bit of trouble, end up going to Chiang Mai, Thailand. Right, my mate Grayson, who's also he knew you. Yeah. He was the one that told my mum that I had the drug problem, right? And he's like, "Oh, why didn't you send Travis to where Pearcey went?" So the whole
crazy,
reason why I went to where I went is because of you.
Yeah. And here we are, bro.
Yeah, here we are.
Yeah.
So I did my 28-day program, as you guys know, and then when you have to come back, you have to do a 3-month outpatient program. Basically, it's just a continued program where you go to meetings. I had a one-on-one, and then I'd go into my group meeting. Now, I go in, I do my one-on-one with Josh,
yeah,
and then as I've been there early, I go out and I sit in the group room. I'm sitting in the circle, waiting for everyone to turn up. And this is the honest thing that was going through my mind at the time, right? And this is going to sound disrespectful, and I apologize for anyone that gets offended by this, but with me having a big ego, right? I was like, I just got back from the 28-day program. Like, who am I going to be hanging out with for the next 28 days? I'm like, I bet they're going to be drop kicks. They're going to be this. They're going to be that. I had this picture painted in my head before I'd even actually done the group. The first person that walks through the door is Skidsy.
Yeah, good old Skidsy.
Sean Kenny Dow. And the next person to walk through the door, my boy Mitchell Pearce.
That's mad.
So that's where I actually met Pearcey, was in outpatient program. And you were already obviously a month in front or maybe a bit more, but we spent the next month and a half, 2 months together doing those programs together.
Yep.
And I actually became, because I think me and Skizzy just started around like within a week of each other. So I got really close to Skizzy. We were like, I was going over to Bondi, catching up with him. We were going to meetings and stuff together for the start. But I remember, and this is where I'm excited to get into the conversation with you, Pearcey, because I remember sitting in those circles with you. And at that time in your life, and I'm only going to share my opinion. You can tell me what you think. I didn't think that you were an addict, right? I didn't think that at the time. And you touched on before, I think it's a personality thing. We have very similar personalities in the sense that when we do something, whether it's good, bad, or ugly, 100%.
100 miles an hour.
We're going hard, right? And that was always my opinion of you, right? That was like, I've kept that. I might have said that to some other people, but I think that's something that I've just kind of always thought myself. Skidsy, similar situation. Both got caught in like weird situations, and then you guys found yourself in rehab. But I remember you saying in these groups, I just want to be able to have 6 beers with the boys and go home. Right? Right? Now, let's talk about that 6 or 7 year period between when I met you and I, I committed to not drinking from then on, because I know where you get to, but we'll get to that later. I had my moment where I was like, enough's enough, right? What was that next 6 or 7 years like of like limbo? Am I going to be sober? Am I not? Or did you just commit to like, no, I'm just going to do what I want to do?
Yeah, so that's mad hearing that, Travi. We've obviously had a relationship from that sort of moment in that
full circle now, though, right?
Full circle, yeah. It's been great connecting again, but those sort of experiences, you have quite some intimacy with people, and it's pretty cool to hear that the reason you went to to Chiang Mai was because of that. Sorry, mate.
Right.
Knowing that I'd been there, but yeah, I suppose when I look back on my behaviour through my temptations, through alcohol, drugs, women, the big three, as they call it in the rehab, through those experiences and through going to Thailand, I was really always good at being disciplined and getting off things for a short period of time. And it's really cool when you said that about seeing you didn't see me as an addict, and I've probably always been in denial around that myself. So even when I went to rehab, I never really felt like, because I knew I had a discipline and I had an ability to be able to get off things for a short period of time. Usually, the reason being because of footy.
Yeah.
Because I knew I would perform better. I never fully committed completely to change.
I completely agree with that.
So for me, rehab at that time, my first experience when I went through my alcohol problems, it was more around.
How did you find Chiang Mai? Did you like it?
I loved it. Yeah,
I loved it.
I loved it. I got a lot out of it.
By the way, we were in the same room.
Were we?
Yeah, because the guy told me, he goes, you from, when I got there, he's like, you're from Australia. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, you from Sydney? I'm like, yeah. He goes, oh, we just had a football player. I'm like, yeah, Mitchell Pearce. He goes, yeah, he was in his room.
Benny Cousins was there before me.
Shut up, was he?
I think a
Man,
period before it, yeah. So I was getting all these stories because, as you know, a lot of people there were Americans and English and people from all walks of life. So when an Aussie or a sports person came in, you sort of get, oh, that Ben Cousins was here. And I was hearing some pretty mad
you were
stories.
that guy for me. You're the footy guy.
Yeah. Well, I was actually training in there. So they all thought I was crazy because when I got... You were training too.
I broke into the gym.
Yeah.
Yeah, so every morning I used to break into their gym at like 5 a.m.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and they used to think I was crazy.
Well, I was running on that grass bit.
Yeah. I was doing Malcolm's there.
Well, I needed to get my mass runs up and all that type of stuff. So I knew in my head, even though I was there, I knew like I had that pressure of coming back because I knew if I didn't get sacked for the whole year, I needed to come back and play well.
Yeah.
I'd let a lot of people down. When I went there, I had a lot of stuff going through my head, as you would have. I pretty much had the episode with all the dog stuff and the heightened media attention here.
Ridiculous.
Got on the plane and then without the phone for most of the weeks, and I basically didn't even really use my phone there just because I wanted to fully get away. I'd call mum and dad and close friends on the Saturday sometimes, but majority of the time I just got away from the phone. Well, we weren't allowed it until weekends anyway.
I had my iPad and I had a SIM card. I was so naughty.
I didn't even watch TV.
Really?
Yeah, I just went really disciplined. There was obviously TV there and iPads. I didn't have any of it.
DVDs as well.
Yeah. I didn't have any of it. But so I was training on that grass.
I know the grass, bro. It's about 40 meters.
And they're all just having bungers and all the addicts are sitting around having bungers and having D&Ms on there running mass runs. Because in my head I'm thinking, I have to come back and play good.
Yeah. That's crazy. That makes me so happy that you and I are doing the same shit.
How good's that?
So when I went into that gym, I fully reorganized the whole gym because the layout was horrible. Yeah, right. And I was like, so I went in there, changed one morning I was in there.
You would have been the man there.
Yeah, bro. They loved me. They loved me in there because I know I kind of was like the leader amongst our crew, and I think you'd be the same. Yeah. I was always the person talking, always kind of showing direction, and I'm assuming you would have been the exact same in the process groups and the focus groups and stuff like that. Always kind of who's your counselor in there? Do you remember his name or her name?
It was a man.
I had Javier.
I should remember that. No,
he was a Spanish
American guy. My guy. The counsel was good, to be honest. I got more out of the group discussions and then just the chats with the team and the guys and women that were in the rehab. That was the biggest thing I got out of that group or rehab in general was the vulnerability and the trusting conversations. Like I had so many good relationships. So when I left rehab, and I've actually still got them at home, I got 2 letters that I received from a woman and a man and a guy that I I felt like I helped him and he helped me. He's a bit of an older guy and was a bit lost in his life, obviously. That's why we were all there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I received these 2 letters and I've still got them at home.
That's so cool.
And I actually, when I moved house, when I came back from Europe to Australia and obviously had boxes and packages, I went and had a look through them again and I had a bit of a tear because it was pretty emotional, the words. And when you look back on something from 10 years ago, it's quite cool to read back. So the biggest thing I got out of the whole experience, more than counsellors, was just the interaction with other people. I was only 25 at the time. So
was I.
Yeah, so for me, I've always been like emotionally switched on, I suppose, with all my chaos. Emotionally, I've always connected with people at a deeper level. That's sort of, ever since I was a kid, I've always feel like I've had that connection with the world and people, but sometimes didn't know how to always express it. So it's probably the first time going into that environment where you're forced to do it. It allowed me to kind of bring that out a little bit through group discussion, through conversations with people in and around. And, there's some, obviously, as you'd expect, there's some traumatic stories in those rehabs. You talk to, I'm going to spill the beans on exactly what was said, but, people around sexual assault, family trauma, a lot of stuff that... people might be out the back having a cigarette through their break and you get under a tree and have a conversation with an older man or a younger woman who wants to talk because she feels first time in her life she feels comfortable to express herself. And those moments are special, and I gave a bit of myself. So, and some things I would have said there that maybe I won't talk to people about back here. No phones, and there's a really trusting environment because a lot of these people you're not going to see again. So, that was the 2 things more than anything I got out of that rehab experience. We'll get to it in a minute. I got back on the drink. So the 2 biggest things I got out of that was probably dealing with trauma and blockages and just learning reality of life, that people are going through stuff that leads to all these issues.
It comes down to communication, right? Like I found once I just started talking to people and actually like being vulnerable and having conversations, weight just kept coming off my shoulders every time. And then the more open I was, the more like it didn't take away the problems, right? You can't take back what you've done in the past. And you have to learn to be able to live with that. But what I found was every single time that I opened up and spoke to these strangers, right? And I was the exact same. I said things to those 16 people in that circle for the first time that I had never even said out loud, let alone to another person. So what I took out of it was just like, being vulnerable isn't so bad. And we both come from that football culture, right? Run hard, tackle hard, eat steak, drink beer, be tough. You know what I mean? And my old man played in that similar era to your old man, right? And that culture of like drinking was just embedded into them, and then like being tough was just embedded. And it's not saying like you can't be tough and vulnerable. You can do both. Yep. You can do both. And that's what I took out of it. So what we discussed this off the camera before, and the next 6 years would have been a real wrestle for you, because you've just gone through this rehab, made some really nice connections, but you're still wrestling with, can I drink, can I not drink? What was that like 6 years like for you?
Yeah, well, that 6 years was probably, you can fast forward that to probably 15 years of the same type of patterns. So probably from 18 to the rehab, I wasn't really conscious of behaviours. I was just in fast forward all the time. Like you said, ADHD, 100 miles an hour. All I cared about was footy, to be honest. Relationships were a calmness to my life. In out of all respect, that's hard to say that, but relationships, as much as I had love in those relationships, they were selfishness from me. It's hard to say that, but my relationships from my girlfriends that point of view were selfish, I suppose, because my football and my good times always overrided my investment in that. Football was always my number one priority, but then also squeezing in good times and managing, not ever missing out on anything was sort of my life. So you put all those things together, you got a lot of chaos and destruction. When I went to the rehab, that was probably the first time I'd slowed down a little bit, and I got a lot out of it. I definitely learned a lot of stuff around sabotaging and where I was stuffing up. I was always aware of it, But then the other thing, as you said, is actually diving fully into it and wanting to live like that consistently. So the 6 years after that, we're probably the same cycle. I'd be really good. Majority of the time in footy seasons, I was really good because, as I said, I was so proud about how I wanted to play my footy and I wanted to win and do well for myself and my teammates that the purpose for that always overrided a good time during the season.
How long did you stay sober after the first rehab?
I did the whole footy season off.
Because you were in Feb, weren't you?
I was in, it was January, end of January, Australia Day. So I hadn't had a beer from then, and I stuck solid 100%.
Yeah.
The whole footy season. Nearly got picked for Australia at the back end of that year, so playing off the back of 12 games. So I played some really good footy and all these good things once again, as we know. Get off the drink, take away the temptation, and all these abundances start to happen. But yeah, I fell into the cycle again that off season. I started drinking, not crazy, but having a little.
Just want to have 6 beers and go home.
Just want to have the 6 beers and go home. We know that it didn't happen.
Every single group session, he's like, I just want to have 6 and go home with the boys. 6 beers with the boys and go home. Yeah, I used to love it.
The 6 beers.
It didn't happen.
Didn't happen.
Nah, it's okay. It's all right. We got there in the end.
We got there in the end.
So it would have been tough though, bro. Like going through those, like we talked about before, because you now know what comes with being sober, right? And then you have the other shoe on the other foot, where it's like when you're drinking, what happens when you're drinking as well? It's not good times.
No.
Like that chaos, the drama, the constant, almost paranoia of like, what have you done?
Paranoia.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's rife all the way through that times. Like were there 2 or 3 moments that really stand out to you now in hindsight of like, shit, like because I have those moments. I look back and go, wow, I can't believe. We've talked about it off the camera before, but you look back on the people you're hanging out with and the times you hung out with. What were like the 2 or 3 moments where you kind of look back now and like, that one burns it. That burns a lot that I got myself in that situation.
There's plenty of times like that. I think you spoke about paranoia before and being someone you're not. And that, for me, was probably the storyline of me in and around drugs and alcohol and that type of stuff. That was in your early days, and we joked about it before. When you start to experiment as a kid, you start to get into different things, and we all do it. Well, most people do it. You get into these good times. It's all fun and games. I think the older I got, that whole fun and games wasn't happening as much, but I was probably leaning towards these things more for escapes, as I've done more reflection, deeper issues, which was around self-worth, not dealing with responsibility or not taking responsibility, not really being scared and fearful of committing, in relationships, committing to life, being a man. I could see that now. And for whatever reason, I was being weak. I was taking weaker options for a long time. You can use it as escapes, but for me now, since I've taken ownership and responsibility, I was taking the weaker option. I was taking the option that's easier, but as we know, it's actually a lot harder. It's a battle within yourself all the time, and I probably lived like that for a long time. I knew the best version of myself. Like we said, when you get sober and you're off the drink and you're doing good things and being of service to the rest of the world, life is peaceful. Good things start to happen for you. I knew what I would get out of alcohol. I'd get a good night or two. I'd get a good laugh with the boys for a week or so, and then the side effect was just dead. There was no bigger purpose, and you take that battle on for a long time. The 2 wolves analogy, but it's so true. Do
you know the 2 wolves?
Yeah, bro.
That's the best. That's the best. Oh, you've got it tattooed. So wolves. Basically, guys, the 2 wolves is a story where. I'm going to butcher this, but I'm going to give it my best crack. It's a Grand Cherokee talking to his grandson, and he talks about there's 2 wolves within us. And he talks about wolf number 1, and wolf number 1 has envy, jealousy, regret, all the bad things. And then there's another wolf, and it's got happiness, and it's got joy, and happy for your friends, and all these different types of things. And the grandson asks the Grand Cherokee, which wolf wins? And he answers, the one you feed the most. Bruh.
That's mad.
Bro, I can't remember if you know. I have that somewhere. Like I think I posted it or whatever it is. But yeah, that's me and you, right?
Yes.
Which one wins? It's the one we feed the most.
Yep.
And now we're both feeding, obviously, the good wolf.
Yep.
And just life completely changes. Let's go to the moment. The last bender you ever had where it just... I don't know. Something, because I know, but I don't know how to explain it. Something just clicks and something changes in with you. What was that last bender like, and what made you turn?
Yeah, so I was on the Gold Coast with Toddy, my great mate Toddy, friend of both of ours, and it was just it was a different experience. We spoke about before in detail about experience through my 20s and early 30s of being short-term sacrifice, for short periods of time, and then sooner or later getting back on the train again and self-destructing. That sort of pattern was my life for a long time, or pretty much all my life. This bender was just different. I was feeling a bit uneasy and insecure around the time, to be honest. A little bit lost. I had a breakdown in my relationship the year before. Getting older, a lot of people have settled down, and friends and with kids and wives, and really moving forward. My life from a financial point of view, and obviously with footy and the lifestyle I was getting to live over in Europe was great from an external point of view and what I perceived to be good. But inside me, I lacked that bit of peace. I didn't have that. I was still a little boy, to be honest, which sounds a bit embarrassing to say, but I was still running away. And come away from that bender, I remember after 3 days with Toddy, and the whole time felt weird. I was just sort of, once again, battling those two wolves in my life, but then that transferred into this few couple of days. So in myself, I wasn't really enjoying the experience. And then it was the last day. Went for dinner with Toddy, and I just said, "Man, fuck, I'm over this. I'm not going to drink anymore." And that was basically it.
What was the date?
Fuck, man, you tested me now. I'm not good with this shit.
You know what? So
it was November 23, I think, 2000 and... I should know.
Yeah, you should know your sober day. That's like I celebrate that day more than my birthday.
Yeah, right.
My sober day. It's better. Birthday's like...
I'll chase it up for you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Well, it was one of those things where I just sort of went, that's it. So I was really lucky. I had two mates I spoke about a lot. Michael McAlorum, an English mate of mine, Tyrone May, who I became really good friends with and still one of my really tight mates. So when over in Europe, we were together, the three of us. We experienced a lot of good stuff together, and the boys were off the piss before me. So back end of the year before, as good mates do, you sort of challenge each other, and I was copping a lot of shit off them for the way I was behaving, still drinking and that type of stuff. And so the reason I brought that up, I think going back over, knowing I was sober and being around the lads that I was close with, I knew that it would be quite easy to do, or easier to do, being over there one out on my own with the boys. But yeah, so that was it for me, man.
Did you go to rehab again?
No.
Just made the decision. Flick the switch. That's hectic. That makes this story heaps more powerful.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times it takes... I remember for me, Brian, you would have had the same thing in your rehab, right, where they get people to come in and tell their stories. And the big defining moment for me was like, right, I'm one and done, was because this guy told a story. And I judged him when I first looked at him. And when he was talking, I was like, this guy's a drop kick, right? Then he started telling his story, and I'm like, no, not me. Then there was like this 5-minute passage that he went on about his story, and it directly aligned with what I was doing. He started taking cocaine, started drinking more, started partying by myself, started gambling by myself, all these types of things. I was like, shit, that's me. And what the deciding factor for me to not come back was he ended up coming back to rehab 4 more times, right? Over the span of 12 years. I'm like, I don't want to be that. I might not be that person right now. Yep. And I'm judging him, but I will be that person if I continue down this road. So you not going back to rehab or anything, just going, no, flick a switch, that's me done. That's incredible, bro. What was the first 3 months like?
First 3 months was a lot of soul searching. So to be honest, after that experience in the Gold Coast, I reached out to my counsellor.
Yeah. Who's your counsellor?
Rose, a friend of mine, a lady. She's an older woman that I'd had a bit to do with in a breakdown in my relationship a year earlier. Yeah. She was really helpful for me at the time, and so when I didn't go to rehab, I did go and seek help. I went and spoke to to my counsellor. It was more, to be honest, around some mindset stuff that was going on. In hindsight now, since clearing my life and the alcohol and everything out of it, was brought on, I think, a lot of that from lifestyle behaviour. But I had a lot of, around that time and times when I was drinking, I had a lot of paranoia a lot of the times, some dark thoughts. Would never say really dark, but I'd turn in quite depressed and introverted on the back of benders. I'd become a really anxious person and really insecure. And I was tired of that. I was tired of that drain, and I honestly just thought that was who I was. And I knew people that around me, and anyone you speak to probably would know that about me, that, you know, off the back of benders and that type of stuff, my moods would swing really hard, and I'd become quite weird sometimes and introverted and paranoid, and that was sort of the cycle for a long time. So I accepted it as who I was a bit, but that was probably the biggest thing more than the drink. The drink was obviously a byproduct of that, but I think that behavioural stuff and that insecurity and all those, just not being the best version of myself, or just that battle was something that was more powerful than it was previously. That was probably that was the tipping point for me. And being 34, single, having plenty of good success in my life, but all this other baggage and this weird stuff, these anxieties, this self-doubt, going back to escaping all the time, self-sabotaging, all of this feeling, if you can get where I'm getting at, these emotions was the feelings I was feeling on that day. And I remember going outside on the last day when I was on the bender and just sitting on my own and just calling one of my mates and my sister actually, and just going, I'm fucking need to stop this shit. Like, it was really emotional, to be honest. And I was just burnt out and tired, and just started doubting myself a lot. And then got in touch with my counsellor, and I actually went and was going to seek a little bit of help just around some stuff, because I was worried about my mood swings at the time. But I ended up just saying I'm going to get off the drink for a while, stop drinking, get off all the shit that's sort of holding me back, take accountability and responsibility, man up, basically. Went back, and as I speak about my mates a lot, because they were really helpful for me at the time. Fuck. But then I went back and, fuck.
I appreciate it, bro. I'm feeling all the feelings, bro, 'cause I know where you're at. I've been there.
Yeah, so I went back to Europe, and then I obviously met my partner, and good things happened. Fuck, what am I crying for, bro?
Bro, it happens. It honestly, you look back on those times, and I think it goes back to that call that you made to your sister, because that's when I seen it, and that's what happened when you get to that point where enough's enough, and you didn't say it, but you get to this crossroad, and I touched on it off camera before, where you either continue down this path where you're more than likely going to die, right? Or it's like there's not a happy life there, you know what I mean? Or you choose to go the other way, and you get to that crossroad moment, and it changes. Bro, thank you so much for being vulnerable, because what you're sharing right now, I know it hurts you, and I know that it's really hard to do this, but you right there, you probably just saved someone's life from that conversation. So be proud of yourself being able to be open, be vulnerable, because I believe a lot more men need to be doing it. And someone like yourself, with the amount of success you had, that you can show that you can be vulnerable as well. It saves people's lives. I know that from experience, and I don't mean to like just piss in your pocket, but I know that what you're talking about now will save someone's life right now. So, bro, thank you so much for sharing that. And you're 2 years sober now?
2 years sober. So, yeah, look, so much has changed in my life. I think when I went back to Europe, that second year, got off the drink, I was really committed to wanting to be a better person. I addressed over that. You asked what the next 3 months was like for me, and it was probably a lot of soul searching. I speak so glowingly about Europe because so much changed in my time there.
Polar opposite seasons, right?
Yeah. It was the best place for me. It feels like home over there now. Obviously, I speak about it a lot. I met my beautiful partner. She changed me a lot with a lot of things, different cultures, introduced me to some faith. I just really did a lot of soul searching in that period. As we know, nothing's a coincidence, and it was a journey that I was leading to, but it was a real awakening, and I was able to, being away from Sydney and being over there with freedom, I was able to do a lot of soul searching. I was obviously in contact with my counsellor a fair bit. I just really dug in and sort of tried to address things with clarity. I think when you take out the drink, you're able to identify what's really going on what was holding you back. I think the thing with people like us, you obviously, and I said before, sometimes people, I don't, when you said about, you don't see me as an addict, but people that are high achievers or go-getters, we're usually pretty in tune with what's going on, but we just try and deny it sometimes. And it's funny when you clear out the mess and the chaos, and I say it all the time, man up and actually take responsibility and be fair income and be honest with yourself. It's funny what awakenings you get. And that was something that the journey I've been on in the last couple of years was, especially that first few months was just digging in and getting clear. And
addressing the problems and solving the drama and doing all that shit, but there's no form of escape anymore, right?
There's no escape. Which to be leading to the drink, or any sort of temptation when you run to it, it's a chance to just... for me, it blocks your growth. It blocks your ability to really address any momentum or gain any momentum in life. For me, anyway.
I agree, and I always say it's like, because essentially, right, when you and I would drink, it'd be trying to escape a problem, right?
Yeah.
But we're trying to solve a problem with another problem.
Yeah.
It only just compounds and makes things worse, and like you said, it just becomes a blockage.
Yep. Yep.
So that's
it was, and it's been a cool journey. Like for me, I think just going on a journey of trying to find myself, version of myself, it's been cool. And I'm perfect. I'm still trying to work it all out, but it's a more rewarding journey.
But you're on the journey. That's the thing. Like, none of us are perfect, but we're on the right journey, and we're in the right lanes now, and we put everything that doesn't serve us purpose outside those lanes. The coolest part about not the coolest part, one of the cool parts about your story is a Toddy. Toddy ended up getting sober too, my boy.
Yeah.
So he's about 3-6 months after you?
Yeah, so we're obviously in touch a fair bit after that. We speak all the time. But yeah, it took Toddy probably a few months after to get off the drink. He obviously had his own story that he'll tell you about, but he had some breakdowns in his relationships, and we all know Toddy was one of us. He was wild and
wild.
Toddy was wild.
He was like,
we're all wild, but Toddy on the drink was he took the gold medal.
Yeah, he wins. Well done, Toddy.
So yeah, but it's just been so good. We've always been good mates, but as we said before, nothing's a coincidence. To come back organically and just go on this journey together in the way we are, it all feels meant to be, and it's been really cool teaming up with Toddy and going on just like I just said, this journey together, and I'm so proud of him. I'm proud of the way he speaks now and how much accountability he takes in his life. He's inspiring me. He's a very smart guy, Toddy. He's a very creative guy, always has been. One of the best players I've played with. You talk about an athlete and sports person, but Toddy's one of those guys that when he's clear and he's and he takes responsibility, he's just magic happens around him. It's a pleasure to be around him.
He's one of those guys, that anything can happen around him. Like, good things always happen. And what we're going to touch on now, which I'm really proud of you boys. So one, right, you both had your own journey, but now you're starting to share that journey with other. And we're going to touch on now the Reboot program, right? And for those guys that you'll hear about this over the next coming weeks, we're going to be doing a workshop in Reborn. We're going to have yourself, Toddy there. Trent Merrin's coming down. We're going to do a session. We're then going to do a keynote speaking from Trent, and then a Q&A with you and Toddy, which I'm pumped about because there's going to be some giggles, probably some tears as well, but that's the best type of Q&As. Tell us about the Reboot program, bro. Like, how did it come about with you and Toddy? And then we'll go into the details of it, which I've got in front of me.
Yeah, so we've always, obviously when you make lifestyle changes, I keep saying it, but nothing's a coincidence. Things just start to manifest, and I think when you make changes and the experiences we've lived, you included, you go through rehab centres. Toddy went there, I went there. You go and do counselling courses with different, mentors over the years. I I think for us, it was just all these lifestyle changes that we've made just grew into this idea around Reboot. I had a relationship with a counsellor that sort of sparked it. We spoke about going into schools and communities and creating a program, obviously with our profile as a sports person and experiences we've had.
Powerful.
And then linked in with this clinical psychology part, a program that's based on counselling and psychology. So that was the idea at the start, and then me and Toddy have just sort of got right into it, and we're really passionate about creating a tribe, a community that allows people to reboot, men to come a part of what we're doing and learn and grow together. And as I said, with the counsellors having the psychological point of view and setting up the 7-step program, we're really excited about where we can go with it. We're taking our time. We're not thinking we're above anyone or below anyone. We're in the trenches learning and growing together. And I think as men, that's you can tell me yourself with the gym, we're new to it, but I think that's the best way we all grow in a team environment, pushing each other.
I agree. And like kind of reflecting back on when you got sober, if you had gone back to your 1 out, I think it would have been really hard. But you having the 2 boys there, like your tribe, it just makes things so much easier as well, because you got someone to lean on, which is really important. Now in front of me, I've got, you got the 7 different things here that essentially make up what Reboot is. And the first one is identify. Run us through that.
So identify is basically identifying your problems. We just spoke about your light bulb. I think for Reboot, anyone that we're going to attract to the business or the tribe is going to be someone that's searching for a reboot. Someone that, and it doesn't have to be it could be at all sort of levels. Someone that's stuck living under a tree that's really looking for help, or there could be high achievers that are looking for that little edge. Something that might be little addiction might be holding them back, or breakdown in relationships. Very common, and that's been a lot of the response in a couple of the relationships we've built already, is some people that are actually really successful that are just looking for a little bit more of an edge or understanding of themselves. So firstly is identifying your issue, and we open a platform for that.
Love that. Next one is R for refocus. Run us through the refocus phase.
Refocus is obviously a bit similar to the identifiers, just understanding yourself, refocusing. You have a conversation with our counsellors and start building a relationship around that. Refocusing your mind from the negative patterns to identifying where you want to go.
Engage. I think this is a big one here. Engage.
Yeah. Engage is obviously, they all sort of transfer into each other naturally. Engage is obviously going through the steps of identifying your problems, engaging with the counsellor in some deep conversation, some vulnerability, and identifying basically where we need to go to improve. Engaging with your community, engaging with other people as well. Like that's a really powerful one. That could mean like a multiple different ways, but it just all brings it all, ties it all together. And then we've got build. Build's obviously when you're getting to work, getting through the process of building your new mindset. It takes, as we know, you need time to build habits. We know with any change, once you're identifying what the problems are, you need to start getting into the grind and get into work. So, building your next phase. The next 2, we've got 2 O's in a row: overcome and then optimize. Overcome's a big one, I think, in any transition, is when you're creating new habits and you're starting to get some momentum. Overcoming the things that keep popping up is a bit of an issue for all of us. It comes even 2-3 years down the track of some growth. You're still constantly going through some obstacles, so that's a strong phase where you got to stay consistent. And then optimize. So basically, just whatever you've learned so far, then you just get better and better and refine it. Optimize and thrive's obviously that next phase. And, it's a quite a common process this through counselling. We've got a really strong team there. That's really helpful. I've done work with these guys and they've been really beneficial for us. The thing for us as well, you don't do a 7-step program or train in a gym for 6 months and you're healed. No, it's an ongoing process, and I think the idea around me and Todd creating a tribe and a community, we'd love to do stuff online. We're obviously getting the luxury of teaming up with you in the gym and building some relationships, but I think like anything, it's about ongoing work and community and being a part of something. Hopefully we can create that. I mean, I've met Toddy along the way
He, even like when I didn't really know Toddy, he actually, there's a couple of times where I did charity events. I don't know how we got in touch with each other, but he would always like reach out, give me jerseys, sign and stuff like that. So he's always been such a gentleman. Watching you boys go through your journey, it was hard to watch sometimes, especially with Toddy, some of the things that he went through. But now seeing both of you on the same path, but then also helping others, man, I think it's going to be so powerful from the content I've seen you boys put out and how well you both speak. I really think you guys are going to change a lot of people's lives. So you should be really proud of yourself, of what you've done in your career. But I believe what you're going to do over the next 5 to 10 years is going to be even more impactful than what you did in your career. So,
Thanks,
Mitchie, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for being vulnerable. I appreciate it. And I look forward to doing the Reboot program. It's going to be March 16th, guys, at the gym. Like I said, it's going to start probably around 7 a.m. Times will be announced soon, and there'll be more information coming. But this is the basic rundown. We're going to do a 45-minute session with the lads. Doesn't get much better than that. Then there's going to be some ice tubs involved. Trent Merrin's going to take you guys through that. He's going to tell his story, which is going to be very, very powerful. He's coming on the podcast very soon. And then the boys, this one's going to be a giggle, but I reckon we're going to have some tears as well. We're going to have a Q&A with Mitchie and Toddy. Thanks, brother. I appreciate it.